What is good, everybody? This is Charles from Team COG coming at you guys here with a new series that I'd like to start on the channel. And what this is for everybody out there. If you guys see a topping deck list or you guys see a list of a topping deck list, join the Discord and send it over. And what we'll do is we'll take the deck list and we'll break it down and we look at it and we see the interesting text and decisions and just talk about the deck list that ended up topping. And hopefully what this does is this gives everybody, including me, a better understanding of the deck, especially when you guys can come in the comment sections and explain stuff. Maybe we actually get the person who ends up topping with the list to come onto the channel and explain stuff. But anyway, please remember if you guys want to help support the channel. If you like series like these, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell. And if you really want to help support the channel, hit that join button, become knighted, get awesome perks and rewards and stuff like that. So anyway, with what I figured it would be best to start out with an Infernoble deck list. And I actually have another deck list coming up hopefully later this week, just to kind of test the waters to see if this still, if this is good, if you guys enjoy this type of thing. So again, remember, if you guys see any interesting deck lists that top a regional, top an OTS, top anything, join the Discord, go to topping deck list, and submit it there, and then we'll just get on to it. But anyway, we got a 4th place Infernoble Knight deck profile, Gerardo El Charro Vergara, Victory Road's OTS tournament. And I assume this is like the the OTS championship, right? I assume that's what that is. We didn't have one, which kind of sucks. But anyway, his team is Dragon City TCG, of course. So let's go ahead and look at the list. So we're gonna break it down here. We start off with three Infernoble Knight connector. There we go. 3 connector and 1 dolphin. I'd say that's pretty standard, right? It's the best normal summon the deck has access to right now. It's actually been a lot of debate that this might be what ends up getting hit on the list, dolphin or connector in some form or fashion. 2 Renault and then 2 YuGiOh. Renault is definitely, I think 2 is correct. Renault is definitely the best extender you got in the deck, correct? Like it is phenomenally the best, but it only works with Fire Warriors. So if you're playing cards like connector and dolphin, you kind of lower that consistency of seeing that type of like synergy. Whereas like if you were playing cards like the Battle Boxer Engine or Sublimation Knight, you would always have that synergy, which would almost justify playing 3 Renault. But anyway, 2 YuGiOh. 2 is definitely, since I don't see any Sinful Spoil stuff, he's playing a little bit more heavy names. I still will die on that hill that 3 YuGiOh is correct, even though I know I think the correct normal summon ratio is 5 normal summons, and that's what he has technically right here, right set up now, which I actually really like. I just like the 3 because of my siding patterns, but 2, I believe 2 is the correct number, actually. I think 2 is solid because when I go into siding, I always side 1 out anyway because that's just how I play. I play 3 just because I want to see OG and Renaud, but he went 2, which I think is really popular in like the pure list that you see topping out there, which is nice to see. Let's go ahead and just get this out. It's nice to see that this, for all you budget players out there or who do not have access to the Sinful Spoil engine, that you can do well without that and you still top like your OTS, still top like higher tier events and stuff like that. 1 Oliver, 1 Turpin, 1 Ricardetto, and 1 Malgus, and then 1 Red Layer, 1 Gearfried, and 1 Flint Lady. This is pretty correct. Some people, I've been doing a lot of theory lately that Gearfried is, as much as I love Gearfried, Gearfried's also like a Fire Warrior extender in a way. Like worst case scenario, that's what he has to be used for. Best case scenario, he is like insurance, which is why you play OG and Renaud at the numbers that you do. Then we move on to some hand traps. We play 3 Ash Blossom, 2 Failer. I have never been a fan of hand traps, especially in this deck, just because actually, I feel like it's just me in general because I have such bad luck, but hand traps do work. In fact, hand traps have worked before. So 2 Veiler is interesting. I believe this is 40 cards, so like keeping the 2 Veiler. The 2 Veiler is nice because like when you do the Malgus draw and you end up drawing in perm during the end phase, because sometimes that's like the sequence of events that you can get, it sucks drawing in perm. You would rather draw Ash, or since he's playing Veiler, draw Ash or Veiler during the end phase, so then you have more disruption in your hand. 3 Museum, pretty standard. 3 Heritage of the Chalice, 2 Durandal, 1 Almus, 1 Joyous, 1 DDR, 1 Angelix Angel Ring, and 1 Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. So this is like a standard lineup. A lot of people don't like Joyous, but I like Joyous. Joyous comes up quite a bit, and I found it coming up a little bit better. It's come up more often. Like I've always said that if you want to play Joyous, you should be playing Arthur, just so you get the max potential out of Joyous. But you've actually, like, there've been plenty of hands where I've like normal summon Ogier, dumped Gearfried, activated Joyous, add back the Gearfried, and then you like automatically have like that Gearfried live to summon, and then like you can extend and continue on that way. Other equips is pretty standard, I believe. DDR, Angelic Angel Ring, and Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. I believe that these are correct to play. It's interesting to see what potentially would happen in the ban list, because depending on what happens, that'll change like the lineup of equip spells completely. It'll probably rework this lineup depending. 1 for 1 as an addition was like a very interesting tech to be playing, actually, since he does not have the Sinful Spoil stuff. 1-for-1 kind of acts as another way to get to Ricardetto to play through things. And if you think about it, it essentially does almost the same it does exactly the same thing the Sinful Spoil stuff does. It's just Sinful Spoils can play more copies of it because the Witch can get you to the first Sinful Spoil Snake Eye, right? And that's the card that summons level 1 from the hand or deck. And then it just, yeah, so 1-for-1 is just kind of acting as an additional extender for that same option to be able to get out Ricardetto in case you get disrupted, which is an interesting tech. I'm not going to lie. I actually like that a lot. Makes me kind of wish that 1-for-1 was a little bit, was at more than just 1. But 1 Rhoda, self-explanatory. Double, triple tactics. Kind of interesting. He didn't play Call By, which I see it down there in his, like, side deck. I don't know, Call By is like one of those, like, Saki one-ofs that I like maining it. And then 3 Imperms. So as far as the main deck goes, guys, it looks pretty solid. I really like that 1-for-1. I think 1-for-1 is a solid tech choice, especially if you're on a budget and you don't have access to the Sinful Spoil stuff. It could definitely do that. There's actually another card, I think Fire Recovery, I believe is what it's called. It can also act as another budget option for you if you want to, if you do not have the funds to get the Sinful Spoil stuff. Because I believe it's like $250 just for those cards. And I understand a lot of people aren't out here to, to spend that much. Let's move on to the extra deck. The extra deck, we are seeing 1 Angelica, 1 Roland, 1 Charles, 1 Baron, 1 Dempsey, double Isolde, double Charles, 1 Ferocious Flame Swordsman, 1 Ratin, 1 Powerload Ogre, 1 Apollosa, 1 SP, and 1 Typhon. So I think this is pretty solid. I mean, I can't even say anything. I don't like Ferocious Flame Swordsman. I think just Ratin is better. Ferocious Flame Swordsman seems good, but it's just, its arrows suck, and that's the same thing. That's the same reason that I think Ratin is just better. Ratin gives you those double arrows so you can make double Charles. They've been a few times in like earlier testing when I would do Flame Swordsman, I'd link up into it, and then I'd be able to do double Charles, but couldn't because of the arrows. Where if I just would have made Ratin instead, but it actually does have some more purpose and utility in the fact that it just takes 2 monsters to make. So like you can link off a nib token with it. So like if you get nibbed, you can like extend, link into this, and you have a Fire Warrior that can make like your Renault live and stuff like that. I believe the artwork is phenomenal. I actually wish it had 2 downward pointing arrows because then I would just play it over Ratin because it'd be a little bit more synergy than what Ratin can do. A Powerload Ogre is just a link for towers that the deck can make. It actually has some good utility with underneath like such floodgates like Skill Drain because it can tribute itself and destroy 4 cards, which is really cool. In certain scenarios, like let's say you look at the opponent's hand and you don't have access to Angel's Ring and you see like Super Poly and stuff like that, you can end up ending your board on like Powerload Ogre plus like Charles and something like that. And they can't Super Poly it because Powerload's unaffected. So I mean, they have to commit their own card, which if they're playing Super Poly, probably not that big of a deal. But if they're like some deck that's just trying to play Super Poly as a board breaker, it does like kind of like stop that card. Appaloosa standard, SP standard. Typhon is pretty cool. I remember being terrified of Typhon. I'm like, oh, this card's going to break my deck open. I literally had it summon on me. They spun 1 Charles back, and then they couldn't crack over Gearfried or Charles. So my turn, I just went Battle Phase and cracked over Typhon. And that was it. I remember just being terrified of this card. It is a solid card for us to play because sometimes in the crackback, we just can't break a border. Like sometimes we have enough to bait and negate. Like, normal summon Ogier, normal summon Connector. We end up stopping their one of their negates out there, and the monster still stays, but then Typhon comes down, and that just allows us to kind of clear the board. Now going into the side deck, we are looking at 2 cross out, 1 called by. I think I'd just play 3 cross out. I think I'd main the called by and just play 3 cross out. But triple nib, double lightning storm, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 3 judgment, and 3 evenly match. I assume that, cross outs in there to put a nib, because like everything, if you put a nib and put out cross out, like you solve everything, right? But here's the thing is cross out solves all these issues, whereas call by will only solve cards like the hand traps, right? Like the monster hand traps. So I would just play the 3 cross out. 3 nib. Nib's a powerful hand trap. Like I said, in my professional opinion, which I shouldn't even say it's professional, but in my traumatized opinion, I hate drawing nib as my 6th card after they full comboed. I really hate that. But nib is one of those high impact hand traps that like I justify playing just because of like it can just end a turn completely. In fact, nib plus Inperm is like one of the only 2 hand trap. If Infernoble's open really good, Inperm and nib is like the only true way to like truly stop this deck. Like it's the 2 hand traps that can hurt this deck the most, because if you're playing the deck correctly, you should almost always have Gearfried up, and you just Inperm Gearfried and you just smack nib down, and it sucks. Happened to me yesterday in testing, so it can do it. But that's what I think that, and then Lightning Storm and Harpy's Feather Duster. I feel like these cards and these Harpies is definitely just for back row decks. I don't feel like there's a lot of good back row decks out there at the moment, but you always want to stay strapped. You always want to keep one on you. You always want to keep one locked and loaded. The triple Solemn Judgments, I don't feel like this card is needed in the side deck. I was a strong advocate for this card pre-Angel Ring because like we would go first, we'd set up a board, and we'd get blown out by like Droplets, Dark Ruler. What else was another giant blowout card? I mean, like Droplets, Dark Ruler, Super. Well, we can't Judgment Super probably, but like these cards would like blow us out. So you needed to have something like Judgment to be able to flip to stop those blowout cards. And then sometimes like sometimes like you just hold it and they normal summon, and then you just get their normal summon. It's GG. But I don't feel like this card is needed in the side deck anymore. I think Angel Ring is just fixes everything. It does everything that Judgment and more does more for more than Judgment, simply because this card Angel Ring can hit Super Poly, whereas Judgment couldn't. So I feel like that's 3 extra spots you could put into something like your local dependent, your event dependent, and stuff like that, format dependent. And then 3 Evenly. I still play 3 Evenly. I think Evenly is a solid card for going first, or not going first, but going against control decks and going against like combo decks, just because like it literally just evens the playing field, pun intended. But yeah, that's it for my man Gerardo's deck list here. Huge congratulations to him for getting 4th place in the Infernoble Knights. And yeah, if you guys have anything down below, you comment that you would like to point out, or that you see that I wasn't able to cover, or like you see some different utilities out of some of his choices that I wasn't able to see, let me know. But without further ado, this is Charles from Team COG signing out.